Going to call the regular meeting for the Sonoma City Council Monday, October 21st, 2024 to order. Please silence your cell phones, anything that might disturb the meeting. And just to let you know that there will be two opportunities for members of the public to address items not appearing on the agenda. The early public comment period, agenda item number 1, will be limited to 10 speakers. Each speaker will be allowed up to 2 minutes. Speakers who do not have the opportunity to speak during this time will be allowed to make their comments under a later public comment, agenda item number 10. And so when we announce that, you can line up appropriately. And again, that's for items not on the agenda. So please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Roll call.
Councilmember Wellander,
Here.
Councilmember Dean,
Present.
Councilmember Lowe. Here. Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas.
Here.
Mayor Gurney.
Present.
Thank you.
First item on the agenda this evening is a presentation. Oh, approval of the agenda, please.
Move approval of the agenda. I second it.
Well, motion second. Roll call.
Councilmember Wellander,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas,
Aye.
Mayor Gurney.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right. Now item number 1, presentations. And I believe, Madeline, I see you in the audience there. Thank you. Madeline Keegan-O'Connell is the CEO of the YWCA for Sonoma County, and she's here this evening to accept the proclamation from the City of Sonoma designating October 2024 as Domestic Violence Month, Awareness Month. And whereas the City of Sonoma recognizes that domestic violence affects 1 in 4 families in our local community, and that nearly all of us know someone who has been abused, the crime of domestic violence violates an individual's privacy, dignity, and security based on the systematic use of emotional, physical, sexual, psychological, and economic control or abuse. And whereas established in 1976, YWCA Sonoma County is our community's singular and vital resource for local residents experiencing violence in the place. We should all feel safe, and that's inside our homes. The YWCA operates Sonoma County's only confidential safe house, shelter, and Sonoma County's only 24/7 domestic violence crisis hotline. And YWCA's Counseling Support Services offers trauma-informed individual and support group therapy for victims of trauma and domestic violence, including the students at YWCA's therapeutic preschool, serving one of our most vulnerable populations, children's 3 to 5 years old. And whereas only an informed community effort will end the cycle of violence for local families, members of our community are encouraged to participate in the YWCA's scheduled events and programs to raise much needed funding to support their vision for every family in Sonoma County to live healthy, productive lives and be safe in their own homes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, John Gurney, Mayor of the City of Sonoma, along with the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Sonoma. So if I could have Madeline come to the podium, please. And speaking of events, and I'm sure Madeline will speak to this, but and there's information in the lobby, but let me come on down here. Present you with this lovely proclamation suitable for framing on my desk.
Absolutely. Got the frame all set.
All right, couple ones. So first one, 1, 2, 3.
so much. Oh, my gosh. And it's regrettable that we have to have a month like this, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, and of course your esteemed community. My name is Madeline Keegan O'Connell, proud to be the CEO of the YWCA, serving all of Sonoma County. And on behalf of our board of directors, our volunteers and staff, and certainly for the local families that we serve, thank you for taking your time out of your very packed agenda and busy meeting to honor the work that we do. I think the proclamation tells it best. Since 1976, the only crisis hotline serving all of Sonoma County. We run a confidential safe house shelter. It is 36 beds, and tonight we have 22 children there with their adult companions, and the house is zany, very full, and there's a lot of happiness there, actually. There's a lot of joy. So we do answer calls. We serve about 3,000 individuals throughout the year. In our trauma-informed services, our client population is 90% female, 47% identify as Hispanic Latinx, 23% children, 7 are seniors, and the majority are very, very low poverty level families, with 15% being homeless. And gosh, Mayor, you can have my job. You can announce events like ours. Thanks for giving the shout out. It's called Why I Run. It's a fun run walk. It's at Spring Lake this Saturday, 2.2 mile loop, easy to register on our website, YWCASC. That stands for Sonoma County. And the reason I named it Why I Run is exactly for those statistics that you mentioned. There is someone that we all know who has dealt with domestic violence, sadly, and that is why we're out talking about it and why I'm sharing this message. Thanks again for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, and
Thank you.
congratulations on the
Okay.
work you're doing.
Thanks.
Okay, next item, item number 2, comments from the public. This is the opportunity for members of the public to comment on anything that is not on the agenda. And so if you wish to address the council on anything not on the agenda, please step forward and have at us. Okay, I'm not seeing any interest there. So we will move along. Meeting dedications. Are there any meeting dedications from the council? Seeing none, continuing. Council members' reports and comments. Who would like to report first?
I will go ahead and make it quick.
And you can report for all of us,
I know.
apparently. So,
So every member of the council attended the Cal Cities conference in Long Beach, California. And when we go to those conferences, there's a number of educational presentations, both at general meetings and at workshops. And so for me, I think one of the ones that I went to that I found to be very interesting, I won't go into any details because it was really for nerds, is one on the electrification of California. But I will say that I was very impressed with what was happening in regards to transitioning to electrification, and a lot was happening around the port, including getting grants to truck drivers so that they could have electric vehicles versus gas-fueled vehicles. But so we all attended, and it was very informative. Thank you.
thank you. And that was your highlight.
That was my highlight,
Oh,
yes.
okay, very good. Were there
Yes.
some other highlights that anybody wants to share, or should we move along? All right, we're moving along. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Ding.
Yeah, I would like to report because the last city council meeting, we voted me as the representative. However, we didn't have enough quorum to vote, so the this bill was returned back to the board for the further action. And also, this time I was attending API and the caucus at the meeting, and also our fellow Senator Lowe with me. And during this meeting, I introduced to everyone our city's team project because we still have the hope and hate. So this is the section so-called how the city stop the hate. So I think our team project is kind of the education, history education, and the people got an intention and hopefully we can get an opportunity to apply for the grants. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Whoops, thank you. All right, moving along, we will go to city manager comments and announcements.
Great, thank you, Mayor. A couple items. You may have noticed at the plaza, there's some work going on in the trees. We do have a crew putting lights around the trees, getting ready for the November 23rd lighting of the plaza. So it'll take a little while to get the light on the trees, but that's what's going on in the plaza if you see that. And also on November 30th, the tractor parade is returning. So just to put that on your calendar. It was a great event last year, and I'm glad to see it return. And then some vacancies we have on commissions. So we were just informed of a resignation on the Sonoma Valley Community Advisory Commission. So now we have one regular member and one alternate available for the Sonoma Valley Community Advisory Commission. We also still have one vacancy on the Sonoma Library Commission and one youth member for the Planning Commission. So if you're interested in any of these positions, you can go to our website for more information about that and how to submit your application. So thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. And we'll jump to your neighbor there, the city attorney remarks.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I did want to just highlight another piece of new legislation for you that affects remote participation by council members. AB 2449, which you know allows Zoom attendance by council members in an emergency circumstance or with a just cause. So that has been amended. AB 2302 will allow a body such as yourself that meets at least twice a month you would be able to participate remotely now up to 5 times per year. Previously it was 3 consecutive, it was like 20% of meetings or 2 meetings depending upon the circumstances. So it's clarified it a little more, so we're also working on a memorandum on that, and we'll get that out to you guys as well in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, and these items will all be approved with one motion unless acted upon by a council member to remove or another process. Anyway, is there a motion for the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any public comment? Seeing none. Got a motion? Second? Call for the vote.
Councilmember Wellander?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas?
Aye.
Mayor Gurney?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Wow, you're ready to go. Okay. So the moving to public hearings, and public hearing 8.1 is to consider an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision to approve design review and variance UA 2421, which authorizes new exterior lighting that exceeds the allowed foot candles located at 252 West Spain Street. Our Community Development Director, Jennifer Gates, please.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. As stated, before you is an appeal of a Planning Commission approval of design review and a variance for the parking lot lighting at 252 West Spain, seen here. This is in our residential Lowe neighborhood or district, zoning district, historic overlay, and in our Vallejo open space district. So it is surrounded by the state park, and it's around 2.92 acres. So the proposed project is to update building lighting and install new parking lot lighting, focused majorly on the back end of the property seen here. So the proposed lighting includes to replace 5 mounted fixtures, both wall and pole, and then to install 2 new 8 10-foot poles with 1 to 2 mounted fixtures for each pole. So the First Congregational Church and Synagogue have requested this additional lighting for safety and security purposes, and they find it to be important and necessary for the property. Due to the location of the parking lot and the buildings, there is little to no light on the rear of this site, and there's programming on the site at night as well as early in the morning. The strict application of our light foot candles requirement would require additional lights and poles to maintain the light spread and maintain the safety on the site. Therefore, a variance was requested for this project. So on September 12th, the Planning Commission did approve the project with 2 additional conditions of approval. One, limiting the new parking lot's operational hours to be consistent with the hours of operation provided in an existing use permit. Staff was able to find 2 use permits, one for the old Adobe School, which is no longer active, as well as one for the Burlingame Hall. No use permit was found for the church or the synagogue. It also, the other additional condition of approval was to lower the existing lights to the maximum height allowed at 15 feet. If you notice on some of the buildings, there are poles sticking out from the building roof line, and those potentially are over that 15-foot mark, and so it was to lower those down. So before you, and just to clarify, the printouts are going to be slightly different than what you're seeing today. I literally finished the whole PowerPoint right before I came, so just giving you that heads up. I did do some reorganization. So we did do an analysis when we presented this to Planning Commission, and again, it does comply with the height. It does have a lighting schedule. It has shielding that's built into the light fixture itself. And the new poles and fixture colors were chosen to blend in with the environment. However, it does not comply with the maximum foot candles. And as you see here for parking lots, it shall be not less than 2 and not more than 5 foot candles at the base of a fixture. You cannot see these numbers, but there are numbers here. And it is showing you the light spread from each one of those lights. And so they are ranging from around 13 or give or take a few foot candles down to 0.2. So when you see that light green line, that's around that 0.2 mark. So that is the spread for each one of those lights. This is another example of what that would look like. Again, at the base of the pole is what we're looking at, and that's exceeding the 5 foot candles per our code. Here is the light fixture itself, and then also that the pole would be 10 feet tall. So on September 30th, an appeal was filed, and it claimed a number of things. One being that the narrative incorrectly describes certain aspects of the project and the surrounding properties, specifically that there are buildings that have a second floor that are in the condos that are adjacent. And then also that it'll increase the lighting in the evening and that will have an impact on their dark sky surrounding their Park Villas Homeowners Association. The appellant requested the following changes to the project approval, specifically to reduce the height of the light poles from 10 feet to 8 feet, to reduce the brightness levels of the lights there on the light poles in the parking lot, and to have lights on only when evening events or activities are in session. So just as a reminder, 19.84.040 is the section that we use for processing of appeals that are contained within our development code. And in general, the appeal body may consider any issue involving the matter that is subject of the appeal, in addition to the specific grounds for the appeal. And that appeal body may also affirm in part, or reverse the action, decision, or determination that is subject of the appeal. And lastly, when reviewing a decision on a land use permit, the appeal body may adopt additional conditions of approval that may address other issues or concerns that are subject of that appeal. So the recommendation is to deny the appeal and adopt the attached draft City Council resolution that specifically states that it would be denying an appeal and affirming the Planning Commission's decision from September the 17th, 2024 for the design review and the variance. Alternative actions are possible for City Council. Again, one, to affirm the appeal in part or whole and set aside the decision of the Planning Commission, to request additional information from the appellant to substantiate and support their arguments, or lastly, to remand the project back to Planning Commission with specific direction. And that concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions.
All right, do not step away.
not
First of all, I want to ask the City Council to disclose any other information they have received regarding this item that is not included in the staff report, or otherwise known as ex parte communications. Anybody? Jack? No? No, that was handed out this evening, so. Okay, all right, seeing none. Preliminary questions of staff.
Can you go back to the request of the appellant, the 3 items that they were looking at reducing? So the questions I have is in reducing the height of the light poles from 10 to 8 feet. What does that do in regards to the spread of the light on the, by going to 8 feet, will that still accommodate the amount of light they need to keep people safe? And that as well for the brightness of the level of the lights. If you have any information about that. And then do we know, because having the lights on when evening events or activities are in session, how often do we know that there's, we saw those listings of what was approved, but do we know as of today, like how many evening events are generally there?
So as far as the light poles themselves reducing from 10 feet to 8 feet, that would reduce that spread. Commissioner Willers did a good example of a flashlight on his hand, just showing how that works. And then with the reducing the brightness levels of the lights on the light poles, specifically we would have to be looking at the lumens. We've already reduced the Kelvin, which is the heat. So 5,000 Kelvin is a white light, and we've already reduced to 3,000 Kelvin, which is that lower yellow light, which is the lowest you can do. So we have reduced in that sense, so we're not getting that bright white light. As far as the lights on at the evening events or activities, again, we do not have any specific use requirements for the church or the synagogue. And so what activities that they may be doing at night or early in the morning, so basically after the hours of sunlight, I am not sure of. So it would be something that it may not have a regular schedule. There may be a time that they know that they always end, and we could set it at that time, and then have a switch instead of just having a timer.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
How many of the existing 15-foot or the poles that the light needs to come down to 15 feet, how many are there in the campus?
So I needed to double check still, but if you look at this, let's see, do I have a laser? No, I don't. Okay. I wish I had a mouse. So if you look at, let's see, we're going to go the building that as an angle on the northeast side, that's at an angle right there. You can see there's a light. That one is on a pole that does exceed the roof height. So that one potentially will need to come down. And then all along that eastern side, sorry, did I say west? I meant east. So the northeast and then that eastern wall edge that you don't see any light right now, there are lights all along that side. Those I needed to look at to see where their placements were. But those are the lights that were specifically in question about their height. And then the one on the front of the historic church.
If the poles are lowered from 10 to 8 with the same head, does that not increase the foot candles directly beneath, which is the area in which we are now violating?
Yes, it will.
Okay. And in the product literature, it stated that there were field adjustable wattage. I think there were 3 settings. Do you know what capabilities those adjustments have in terms of light intensity?
I do not.
And then it also, within the literature, talked about a side shield and how that worked. Is that taken into consideration when I'm looking at the lighting patterns, say, for instance, on the screen, on the current screen?
I would have to look closer at what was identified for that specific edge, and the applicant also may know. And you can ask him as well.
And then my last question is,
They do have side shields.
the number of wall lights that are going to be going on, I didn't see a number, or did I?
So there's
There's 4, I stand corrected.
4 and there's 5 total.
5 total. Okay, thank you.
So there, you can see up here the purple. There's 2, so 1 on each edge of the parking lot. It does say it is a pole mount with how the side shields. And so that is where you're seeing that hard edge that's being proposed on this. And there is no light that is going off the site itself on the ground.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Lowe.
Thank you. Are there other lighting along Spain Street? Street lights, et cetera?
I want to say yes.
Yes. I mean, I know the answer, but I just want to say, there are street lights on Spain Street. And they go on at dusk approximately to what time?
Mr. Berger, do you know what time the lights are set? Is it
Sunrise,
sunrise, sun,
somewhere around there.
sunset?
Anyway, but there is lighting. But that's just along Spain Street to light up the whole street for safety purposes. Is there a requirement in any of our codes to have lighting within condominium units, apartments, housing for safety?
There are security lighting and parking lot lighting requirements for if it's being installed. I don't know that it specifically is required other than the building itself for safety, for like steps and things.
Right. So in a 2-story building, there would be a requirement to have lighting for safety purposes as well.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Ding.
My question is simple. How many events every in a month or in a yearly do you have this number?
That is going to be a question to ask the applicant for the project. That's most familiar with the church activities.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no other questions for staff, we'll open the public hearing. Public hearing is open, and the appellant will present first. You have up to 10 minutes. And your presentation will include any representatives that you may have with you, engineers or attorneys.
I'm Jonathan Wong. I represent the Park Villas Homeowners Association that is facing west, directly across from the parking lot where the new lighting will go. In particular, the 6 lights at the back. And I appreciate Honorable Mayor and council people for allowing me to speak. I represent a homeowners association of 26 homes, 10 of which face west, directly to the church. Contrary, as Jennifer was saying, to the application, our 2-story homes actually do overlook the parking lot. So there's no impact, as the application is specified. And I would also say that on behalf of the Park Villas Homeowners Association, that we're realistic. We know that change is inevitable. We've seen some of the preliminary writings about the 2045 plan, and certainly there's a lot of change that's possible, especially for that particular property. So we're realistic about what can and can't be done, and that's why in our appeal we specifically said that we totally understand the need for security and safety in that part of the parking lot. It is dark. We just thought there was a way to somehow come to a happy middle ground. And I think the one that's most important to us is the one where we say, yes, there are activities at night, but like a ballpark or other event-driven properties, can we not just turn the lights off when we're done, instead of leaving it on, for instance, till 10 p.m. every night? My comments are not going to last 10 minutes. I just wanted to represent what I think Jennifer's already done a great job doing. And then I guess open it for any questions of me, although I'm just representing a homeowners association. And then I'll yield the floor.
Thank you. Council, any questions for the appellant? We have one. Mr. Wellander.
I had a chance to visit the site today, and I just wanted to kind of confirm the distances. It appeared that from the back property fence of the association, it's about 75 yards to approximately where the asphalt begins. And then if I read this diagram correctly, to the furthest light to the west, it's about another 200 plus feet, something like that. I was a little bit confused. I saw one house that was 2-story and it faced west. The windows faced west. They were fully shuttered, but they faced west. There were 2 windows that appeared to be 2 different units, I believe. The other homes in my quick walk by appeared that it had a shed roof coming toward the west, which it suggests that maybe on the east side there was 2-story windows. Can you just clarify, of the 10 west-facing units, how many actually have windows that look out to the church parking lot?
Yeah, that's a totally fair question. It's 3.
3.
The answer is 3. What I would say, however, those 3 homeowners are important. And it doesn't need to be, I would say, 10 to be any more or less important. I just think that there's 3 people there who have invested a lot of their retirement income on homes they thought would face a dark sky over Vallejo State Park, and whether it's 3 or 10 or 100, frankly, it matters.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for the appellant? All right, thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
All right, next we will have the applicant. And again, you have 10 minutes to present, and if you have engineers, lighting consultants, whatever, so.
Mayor Gurney, thank you, council members. The applicant on the form to planning is our electrician. My name is Mark Hummel. I am a longtime Valley resident, longtime member of Congregation Shir Shalom, member of the board of directors, and I am the designated, thank you, Pam. I'm the board-designated liaison for coordinating security measures that are being implemented at the campus, recognized also by the state of California in administering the grant-awarded funds for the security improvements that are being placed on campus. Let's be clear, what we're talking about here is public safety. The funding for the project is administered by the California State Governor's Office of Emergency Services as part of a statewide program to strengthen and harden security measures for nonprofits all up and down the state. Congregation Shir Shalom was awarded grant funding to take measures on our campus based on a prior security assessment that was then awarded funding from the state for the implementation of measures to mitigate those weaknesses. The lighting project comes in to fill a very much needed security and safety concern that both congregations have had for a number of years. I'm sure you're aware Congregation Shir Shalom shares the campus with our fellow congregants from First Congregational Church. Until recently with Old Adobe Preschool, we would hope that someday we could use the facilities for that again. Burlingame is used by any number of public groups throughout the year, whether it's for jazzercise or whether it's for a youth dance, any number of events. The reason that we have the hot spots along the north side of the parking lot is that the original 1961 parking lot simply wasn't designed to accept lighting. It's not laid out in a grid pattern. It doesn't work very well with modern lighting standards, or for that matter, modern parking lot layouts. And so in order to achieve even a minimal amount of illumination across the parking lot, we do have hot spots along the tree line up at the north end of the parking lot. Most of the parking lot is not over illuminated. Most of the parking lot is not fully visible to the neighbors across the field, 75 or more yards away. So we came to the Planning Commission cognizant of the concerns of the neighbors. We saw their online comments. The project uses a limited number of poles. We didn't start with 15-foot poles. We proposed 10-foot poles. The lighting will be warm yellow, consistent with what the city wants to see, not bright white. We have existing lights on a couple of the buildings, 2 mast lights higher than 15 feet that are existing lights on the backs of a couple of the buildings. Those will be retrofitted with the warmer colored lights, so we'll knock back that bright white light. They'll be tied to the timer that controls the new lighting, so that they'll be shut off so that they don't stay on all night long. The Planning Commission further constrained the lighting time by tying them to the use permit. We had that very question. Can we calendar for the evenings when there are no events? And we can do that. So for those who've gone on to the First Congregational Master Calendar for the campus, which is online, you would see that there are activities almost every night throughout the year, Monday through Thursday, regular Friday events a couple of times a month, not so often on the weekends, once in a while a Saturday event, overflow parking for the events here next door would be one example. And we had that conversation with the Planning Commission around the concerns and the compromises that we were willing to make. And we left the meeting believing that we had an agreement. We'd like to stick with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Oh, yeah, please. Don't go away.
My apologies.
That's okay, Mark.
No problem.
All right,
Yeah.
Mr. Ding.
I would like to know how many events or activities roughly during a year?
How many activities
Yes,
during the year?
roughly.
Well, just a quick review of the calendar on my part, and Kathy Weber, FCC moderator, you're welcome to correct me. I'm seeing anywhere from 14 to 18 evening events per month.
14.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Okay.
just about quite regularly, Monday through Thursday, there's jazzercise or the bell choir or a meeting going on, or, and then we get the occasional religious services Friday evenings and occasional holiday events on the weekends. The weekends appear to be relatively quiet in the evenings.
That's good. Okay. And also another question is, when you design this new lighting system, have you thinking about using the sensor system, on and off?
Yes,
Based on
absolutely.
the traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the sensors would be to turn the lights on at dusk, and then the timer would turn them off at a designated time.
But some of the sensors just based on the human traffic. Yeah. Yeah.
These are not motion activated.
All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
Couple follow-ups to that. So, and generally those 14 to 18 events, what time do they generally end?
Most of them are done by before 9 o'clock, I think, which is consistent with the use permit, the conditional use permit terms. Kathy, please correct me if I'm misstating anything.
And then also these existing, the poles that are above 15 feet, is there a reason why they have to be above 15 feet, or can they be lowered?
We believe they can be lowered, and that was one of the compromises that we offered to the Planning Commission as we stood here a month ago and had a very similar conversation.
And how much lower do you think that they could be?
We're going to have to look at that. The Planning Commission is asking for them to be no higher than 15 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get it lower
Which
than that
meets
if we
the-
can. Yeah, some of this is, to your point, as well about the wattage settings. We want to look at that. If we get out on site and we find that, you know what, we can dial it back a little bit and we're okay, we're happy to do that. We just don't have hard data points right now until we actually see it.
So in the summertime or in daylight savings time, there's relatively minimal impact. There will be like this time of year where it's starting to get darker.
That's correct.
So, so we're really just talking about during standard time till approximately 9 o'clock.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Which is earlier than the ordinance standard of 10 p.m.
Mr. Wellander.
Can you clarify what the product literature meant when it had those wattage adjustments? Did your engineer or your electrician talk to you about what it's described as field adjustable wattage? Did he clarify or she clarify what that really means?
My understanding is that means that in the field we can adjust the wattage on those lights. So in other words, they would be dimmable. They would be adjustable in terms of the brightness.
Thank you.
Okay, and I just had well, actually a couple. So the new lighting that you want to put into the parking lot, is that going to be on a standalone circuit, or is that tied into your other lighting systems?
It is largely a standalone circuit for the rear parking lot. That said, we will also pick up the existing building-mounted lights that are shining on that back lot now. Some of the early concerns that we heard from our neighbors at Park Villas had to do with the existing lighting that is shining on that back parking lot. And those lights are quite high and they're quite bright white.
Okay.
So this project will help mitigate that as well.
All right, good, thank you. All right. Okay, this is the opportunity now for the public to speak on this matter. So please come on up. Oh, 1 second, please. Yes. Oh, 2 minutes versus 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. 3, 2. Oh,
Yeah, how many minutes would you like to
oh,
provide?
I think we'll stick with the 2 minutes.
2 minutes,
Yeah,
great.
thank you. Please, go ahead.
Good
You
evening.
have 2 minutes.
Good evening. I will take 2 minutes or less. My name is Kathy Weber, and I'm the moderator of First Congregational Church. We share our campus with Congregation Shalom, and we support their initiative to tighten down and make the campus more safe for all of us, including the community. You know, our campus is kind of wide open space. People can come into our campus from all directions, including homeless people. We have a beautiful redwood grove in the back that sometimes people spend the night in. So I'm in favor of having this lighting, and you know, I'm not so sure that you know, 9 o'clock is the right time to turn these lights off. I'm just wanting to ask you to consider, you know, leaving the lights on till a little bit longer because of the truancy that happens in that on the parking lot. I think policemen do drive through there every once in a while, but I do think that if you talk to the policemen, that they might agree that having lighting back there would be very helpful for the for all of our safety, including our neighbors across the field. I haven't really walked over there and looked at the fences and seen, you know, how disruptive, you know, the lighting would be for the 3 individuals. You know, we don't certainly want to intrude upon their joy of experiencing our area. but I do want to support this. And, we have Transcendence Theater is now using our parking lot, so those folks come in late at night. We have the Sonoma Valley Chorale that rehearses in the Burlingame Hall, and they leave late at night. We have nonprofits that rent the hall. They don't get done until 11 o'clock at night, sometimes on Saturdays. So, it's a varied kind of situation. So it's hard to really, nail it down. But I just want to appreciate you for considering this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers on this?
Good evening. My name is Richard Price. I'm a resident in Sonoma. I'm also a member of the Temple and also on the board. I'm retired now, but I was a planning and real estate consultant for many years. I'm not a lighting engineer, but I've worked on many projects that are similar. In these particular cases, the concern really for the neighbors comes from two things. Either it's light spillage beyond the property boundary, where you have lighting that extends beyond the property onto the adjacent property. That's obviously not happening. Second thing is where the actual source of the light is visible to the neighbors. But in this particular case, the stanchions are only 10 feet tall. They're shielded, and from the second floor bedroom window, you'll actually be looking down on the light fixtures. So the source, that glare that you see when you look at a lighting fixture, is not going to occur for the neighbors. The neighbors from the actual areas where the hotspots occur, and those hotspots are not very intense. For example, lighting canopy in a gas station is around 15-foot candles. This is less than 1/3 of that. But at that particular distance, what you'll see if the lights aren't at their maximum is you'll see that the parking lot is illuminated at that particular point, a little brighter than the rest of the parking lot. If a car happens to be parked underneath, then you will see the car that will be visible. And that's from a football field away. So the impact, even somebody standing on the second floor happen to look out the window at this particular parking lot, is not going to be substantially impacted. It's not going to affect the dark sky views or have any impact on ambient lighting in the neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Carol Campbell, 307 West Spain Street. I'm 1 block off center of the church. I'm on my front porch a lot, even at night, like in the rain the other night. I'm going out to enjoy it. And I have to say that church needs lights. Should have had it a long time ago. And I watch, and about 9 o'clock, most of the activities, cars are pulling out. Oh, maybe 20, 21, 22 cars, and then it's done. I'm hoping we can resolve the lighting issue for them because it is dark back there. I'm not so concerned, living across the street from the field, seldom do I feel uncomfortable with that open space back there. And we do have wildlife back there. But we need to solve their lighting problem. And yes, I'm thinking when I came this last meeting and heard this and saw the presentation, having the shield on top of the lights, I thought, great, that's great. If we can drop them to 8 feet, that seems like that would even be better. I will not be concerned about the lights at an angle from my house, and nobody else is even outside. So I hope we can solve this problem for them. It is very dark back there.
All right, thank you. Next speaker.
I'm Christine Bohar, but I'm reading this for Mary Smith, who couldn't attend tonight. So her name is Mary Dieter Smith, and she lives at 154 West Spain Street and owns Unit L. Regarding the lighting at the Congregational Church, my understanding is that in recent decades, the thinking has become that attention should be focused on lowering the use of outdoor lighting to muted intensity in towns and cities. Sonoma does a very good job in the way they have minimized the use of street lighting, keeping it low in intensity and not too bright and placed far apart. It would seem a similar approach would be appropriate for the church. The concern is the way the bright lights obliterate the night sky and the ability to view the stars. For this reason, many people move to small towns to avoid the bright lights of the city. At a minimum, the church should lower the height of the lights, but I am even concerned about the spread of light in the field. Thank you for the attention to my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Please.
Good evening. I appreciate your being here. My name is Tim Fogg. I've lived in this neighborhood since 1997. On the same street, I've seen grandkids grow up, you know, the whole thing. I'm insulted by these people. It's been a long time. I was friends with Claudia Wager when she was there, organizing her.
I think we're talking about a different, this is this is a hearing on the lighting at the church.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay.
there'll be a subsequent hearing after
then
this
I
one.
love the church, yeah.
Oh, okay.
How about that?
Well, I'm glad we clarified that.
Okay. So let me back up. 'Cause
Okay.
Go church, yeah.
All right,
Okay.
yeah.
I'll be back.
Okay, all right, don't go
All right.
away.
My name is Kim Pack, and I am the treasurer at the First Congregational Church. And I just want to say that we do need the lighting. I do hope that we can come to an agreement on the lighting as recommended by the Planning Commission. It has been a long time coming to have that the parking lot lit up for the people who attend events and at the church, and it would it's needed, and we really appreciate your consideration. We appreciate all the work that Congregation Shalom has done to work with the Planning Commission to really bring the lighting into, to a compliance, and also reducing the amount of light going into the field and impacting the neighbors. So really appreciate that too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, any other speakers for the lighting of the church? Parking lot.
My name is Tamara Rollins, and I live on 6th Street East, and I'm a member of Congregation Shalom. And I've attended events probably 2 or 3 times a month, maybe a few more. And this time of the year, it starts to get very dark, and all it takes is one pebble to throw me off. And I end up holding on to the cars. So I am really looking forward to some light out there.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Conforti.
Vic Conforti. I'm a member of the church, and just listening to the discussion, having no spillage onto adjacent property, that's very important. Shielded so they're not seeing the actual light source. And the ability for wattage adjustment on these lights would seem to be able to resolve the problem, because we could take the light levels down. Yeah, shortening the height of the poles, of course, will reduce or will increase the intensity of the light at the base of the poles. And unless they're very low, which would make it even worse. But the height of the poles is not that critical, as long as they're shielded from view of the lamp itself from neighboring properties. So, thank you.
That's right, thank you. It's okay.
My name is Peter Stanford. I am a resident of Sonoma. I have attended many functions on the church and synagogue property. And I have a handicap placard. I've had both my knees and both my hips replaced, and it's a scary parking lot at night. It's horrendously dark. There are many, many senior citizens who use the parking lot There are families, there are children that use the parking lot, and I know there's been tremendous discussion in terms of the Planning Commission back and forth to arrive at this recent proposal, which seems to be a good compromise, and I certainly hope you all approve it. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Or thank you. Yes.
Just a quickie. Claudia Raniker, and I would just like you to think about the lights that I heard about by the trees. Can that be kept down to not bother the birds and the wildlife? If that could happen, that would be great for them. Thank you. Nice to see you all.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Trish Hunter, and I live at 150.
Step to the microphone closer. Thank you.
I'm Trish Hunter, and I live at 154 West Spain, Unit N, which faces the field. And I purchased the property a long time ago for the nature, to be able to enjoy the stars and the moon. And I would like to be able to continue doing that without the floodlights onto my property. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll close the public comment. And the applicant has the opportunity for a rebuttal to anything that was said tonight, if they choose.
Thank you, Mayor Gurney. Just to reiterate, we do not have floodlights shining into backyards. We do not even have light shining onto the adjacent Vallejo homelands that are at a minimum 225 feet away from the adjacent fences. We don't have floodlights shining into the sky. You've heard other members of our congregation suggest their unease with even turning the lights off at 9 o'clock. So I believe Mr. Wong spoke of arriving at middle ground. That is where we thought we were at the Planning Commission meeting, when we explained the mitigation measures that had been taken and that would be further taken, and we accepted without objection the constraint imposed by the Planning Commission in their motion. Unfortunately, middle ground to us apparently just means another opportunity to ask for more, whether it's lowering lights, reducing levels, turning things off. We believe we made a good faith effort to accommodate our neighbors' concerns. It comes back to public safety, and I, as a member of the board, am not in position to advocate for anything less than what we think is a minimum amount of light in the back lot for the safety and security of our members, the community, the school that may come in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And our appellant can make any rebuttal remarks? No further comments. All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Who would like to begin?
Go ahead.
Don't make
Do you
me
wanna
do
go,
it.
Brian? No, I would just say I am not a lighting expert. First of all, that disclaimer, please. But it seems to me that the congregation site has taken the neighbors into account and really tried to come up with ways so that they can, have the safety that people need walking on those sidewalks. And I know a good number of the people that attend those events are elderly. I know, with each year I can see less when it's dark out and there's lights out, and I think so my position is that I think we should move forward with the planning decisions, the Planning Commission's decision. And I also do just appreciate some of the comments from the congregation in regards to, that they are going to continue, even when I asked about the 15-foot high, that they would still be looking at that, if there is ways to be able to bring that down, but they still need to do that analysis. So I just felt as if a lot of work has been done to really take into consideration how to best have the lighting for safety, but also respectful of the neighbors.
Thank you. Ms. Lowe.
I think our number one concern as a council has to be the safety of our residents. if we're doing anything other than protecting the safety of the people who live here, then we're not doing our jobs. I want to thank the Congregational Church and Congregation Shir Shalom for working so fairly with the concerns of their neighbors. I wish everybody who came forward here all had that kind of attitude. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't, but I feel like you came in with wanting to get to a resolution with people that will be with you for a long time. And so I will be voting in favor of denying the appeal, and look forward to going onto that property in a safe way, because I too have been back there at times, and it's very, very dark, and it's very the parking lot itself is not always the most level place I've ever been on either. So I could see the need for that, and so that's where I'm going to go on this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wellander, did you want to jump in there?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I believe that with today's technology and the improvements of outdoor lighting, that the concern about spillage has been around for a long time, and I believe that the industries have done a good job of creating effective cutoffs so there is not spillage behind the lights. I also believe that the side shield is going to continue to be effective in trying to control and minimizing the appearance of the hot spots. I do not support the idea of lowering it to from 10 to 8 feet. I think that's not going to make a difference. If anything, it's going to make, again, the foot candle brighter at the base. And I am encouraged by the fact that this particular fixture has the field adjustable wattage, and that will allow for there to be some field adjustment. And I trust that the original applicant, the goal is to create a safe lit environment and no more. So I feel comfortable with that. I also appreciate the recognition of the 3000 Kelvin being a warmer, less bright light, and the fact that the original applicant is willing to replace some of the bright white lights with the 3000 Kelvin. Those are all positive steps, and so therefore I'll be supporting the denial of the appeal.
Mr. Ding.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone. This is a good example. We practice democracy. And thank you so much, Mr. Wang, as the community leader, address your concerns and different opinions. And as our city council member, and what we concerned majorly is the public safety. And some arrangement and your neighborhood maybe not 100% in favor of your side, but from the big picture, we belong to the same community. I would like to suggest you and have very good work relationship with the church and see, and we can do something else. For example, what kind of light color you prefer, and bright red or a little bit yellow, or and also you can watch around our neighborhood, and how about the noise, and how about another things, so, take care of each other and also help each other. In this way, we can get in the harmony in the neighborhood. Yeah, thank you again for your addressing this kind of important issue. And from my side, I would like to support Planning Commission, basically deny this appeal. Thank you so much.
And just to chime in on this, I am a recovering jazzercise student, and I spent many a night out in that parking lot, coming and going to exercise. And when I look at lighting, obviously I come from a public safety background, and there's really two things that you want to be concerned with. One is the safety, and the second one is security of the property itself. And so I would hope that as you're taking use of your grant, that you've addressed those security concerns as well. It's one thing to light up the parking lot for safety, but I also think that the lighting of the facility itself in the evening hours, and yes, even after the 9 o'clock time, the building should have some lighting, and it does accommodate public safety, paying attention to what's going on the property. I hear two different sides, but what I hear is there really is the ability to work with each other, and I compliment you on having those dialogues and conversations and not being adversarial about this. I too will have to find that the appeal of the Planning Commission should be denied, but I think as time goes on, as the executive director of the community center, we put up a big security light, brightness, lighting up the parking lot, and we impacted a resident that was on 2nd Street East from the back of the community center. And we were able to work together and find a product, a shield, that we could put on that light so that it wasn't shining into his upstairs bedroom. And so the technology lends itself to adjustments, whether it's a manufactured shield or whether it's an adjustment of the lighting power itself. So I think we can serve the entire community by supporting this lighting design, and so with that, I will call for a motion.
I would like to move that we deny the appeal and adopt the attached draft city council resolution titled "A Resolution of the City Council of the City of Sonoma Denying an Appeal and Affirming the Planning Commission's Decision on September 17th, 2024, approving design review and variance for installation of new exterior lighting that exceeds the allowed foot candles. UA 2421, located at 252 West Main Street, APN 018-151-011.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comment?
Yes, can we just get clarity as far as the hours of illumination from sunset to what? What was the Planning Commission's?
9.
So again, the school that's no longer there started at 7 a.m. and then the hall is allowed to be in service until 9 during the week. However, that was different on the weekends. Just a second. So there were no, in the weekends on Saturdays, the hall is from 9 to 12 p.m. So there are no night activities, it looks like, on Saturdays. No, it was just a daytime use in the permit.
So if there was no use permit for the church and
Correct.
synagogue, that doesn't mean they don't have need.
Correct.
I would like to have a discussion or some clarity as far as, I think 9 o'clock's a little short. And although I don't think it needs to be burning till midnight, but at the same time, I don't want to shortchange the desire to have a safe campus.
The prior request was till 10 p.m.
And I did hear somebody mention 9:30 as well, so I would certainly support a little later into the evening.
So what does it require from us in terms of our motion to adopt the original request of 10?
That would require just a change to the conditions of approval. So you could include that in a substitute motion. But but the council does have the ability to impose new conditions at the appellate stage.
Okay, is there a desire to do that?
I'll
So
move
we have
a
a motion.
Yeah, I'll move a substitute motion of denying the appeal and changing the operational hours to 10 p.m.
And just to clarify, that is 7 days a week regardless of events, correct?
I believe that was their original request. Is that correct?
Yes.
I think we also heard from the congregations, from the representative from the congregation, that they are, willing to adjust to the times when events are over. So if there's not, it's not like it'll be on every night till 10 p.m. If there's not an event, the lights would not be on. Is that correct?
May I?
Yeah.
Kathy, I don't mean to speak for you. We're willing to look at the calendar. As I said, for example, weekends tend to be pretty quiet. We're happy to turn them off by, say, 8 or 9 o'clock on the weekend, just for the sake of having some lights and eyes on that back parking lot. We don't need to be leaving lights on until 10 o'clock on a weekend when there's no activity. I think our neighbors deserve at least that much. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So
with the understanding that they have the ability to turn the lights off, in restating my motion, I move to deny the appeal, but to change the hours to extend till 10 p.m. as needed.
Okay. There's a motion. Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion second.
So
Roll call.
we take the substitute motion first.
Substitute motion first.
Councilmember Wellander,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas,
Aye.
Mayor Gurney.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right. And do we need to do something with the,
No, because it was a substitute motion,
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
the
thank
original
you.
motion dies by operation of law.
all right. That concludes the public hearing on the lighting. And now we're moving to public hearing 8.2. You know what, we'll take a 7-minute break.
20.
Yeah, I just want to let you know that Monday Night Football is on. And if we would like to see something.
You know what? I can't control. Was it 49ers playing or something? Can somebody get Ron the score of the football game? I don't know.
He's taking it.
Can you turn that one on too?
Sounds weird.
I know. I tried to make it wiggle and jiggle, but it didn't like me. Okay, freezing me. This is just, like, I can just see his arms. No, not that. Okay.
Okay, we are reconvening the evening. We are now at item 8.2, public hearing to consider an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision to deny a use permit amendment, UA 2340, and wine tasting use permit, WTUP 241, that would have authorized a vacation rental and wine tasting facility at 301 First Street West under the adaptive reuse provisions of the city's development code. The appellant requests the city council approve the use permit amendment and wine tasting use permit and give direction to staff on policy issues concerning the adaptive reuse ordinance. Community Development Director, Jennifer Gates.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Jennifer Gates, and as stated, this is an appeal of the Planning Commission denial of a use permit and wine tasting use permit. I am going to quickly go through the background since we did talk about this back in September, but just to give a little refresher. Again, that this is a historic property at 310 First Street West. That some of us call the Cooperage. It is a contributing resource to the Sonoma Depot Historic District. So the first floor was built in 1906, and it's a stone structure, and then the stucco second floor was added in 1920s. And there are 3 tandem on-site uncovered parking spaces that were approved as part of a 2018 project. This is the residential medium zone, which is in orange. The site is with the star. So again, just to reiterate, there was an adaptive reuse permit for the restoration and seismic retrofit of the historic cooperage and the barn back in 2018. The vested uses included a limited retail use on the first floor, a residential use of the second floor, conversion of the existing barn into an ADU, and then the seismic retrofit, which allowed for parking credits. There were conditions of approval as part of that project that we have gone over before. The applicant then submitted a request and requested a vacation rental for the second floor, and then also to add to the retail use on the bottom floor, requesting a wine tasting use permit. Specifically, it's about 2,500 square feet of space on that first floor, and it would include about 2 to 4 employees. On April 18th and May 16th, Planning Commission denied the project based on the findings that the project is not compatible with the surrounding residential uses due to their operational characteristics, that the restoration and renovation was completed in 2023, and it could not find that the project would restore and rehabilitate a historic structure, which is that is in such a level of disrepair that the economic benefits of adaptive reuse are necessary, which is a required finding for a vacation rental. In May 28th, the appeal was filed by the owner, and specifically the filed claims that the adaptive reuse ordinance does not preclude adding other allowable uses to the historic property's original adaptive reuse permit, and that the proposed vacation rental and wine tasting uses are compatible in that the ice house is part of a mixed-use neighborhood. On September 4th, staff had presented to City Council on the initial appeal information and had requested research on the adaptive reuse ordinance and the past application and use of that ordinance. So staff did provide you that information in your staff reports that you have. Just to reiterate, the adaptive reuse is section 1942.030, and it's a process by which we can permit adaptive reuse of historic structures within the historic overlay district that allows uses not otherwise allowed through that base zoning. And so you need to be officially designated or of potential historic value. So allowable non-residential uses are a variety and range from bed and breakfast, restaurants, wine tasting, and again, limited retail, as well as vacation rentals. And vacation rentals was clarified to be structures listed or eligible for listing on the State Register of Historic Places back in 2009. So the ordinance was amended at that time. It also added the requirement that we stated earlier, in which it would be a restoration or rehabilitation project of a historic structure, again, listed or eligible for listing on the state register, that has fallen into that level of disrepair that the economic benefits are necessary to stem further deterioration. When staff looked at projects, specifically on the adaptive reuse ordinance, the most comprehensive list that we could find was associated with our vacation rentals. And of those, we found 9 vacation rentals that used the adaptive reuse ordinance. And we looked further into those specific projects, which were provided to you on a table with your staff report. And of those 9, 2 of them were approved after that 2009 date with the vacation rental additional finding that was required. And specifically, when looking at these, we saw that the adaptive reuse ordinance did allow for changes to the original use that was allowed with the adaptive reuse, specifically 180 East Napa Street. Did have a wine tasting gift shop that was approved in 2011, and then they, in 2013, applied and received their vacation rental approval. And at that time, no additional improvements were needed. They had completed their modifications to bring it back into a living space. At that case, Planning Commission did approve. And then in 2014, Planning Commission did deny 2 vacation rental requests for 162, 166 West Main Street. And PC decision was overturned by City Council, and the appellant had provided additional information that substantiated their improvements request, and also the investment required to restore that building. And so there were improvements associated with that project when it became a vacation rental. On October 17th, staff received a letter from the applicant and appellant's attorney, Mr. Woods. And in that letter, they suggested an amended proposal for consideration by City Council that states that if the wine tasting use permit is approved, that they would withdraw the appeal from the denial of the vacation rental permit. And what the proposal further states is that the wine tasting use permit would be for the Stone Edge Farm Tasting Room to relocate from their existing location on First Street to First Street. The proposed conditions of approval provided were that the hours of operation would be restricted to 11 to 6 days per week. The wine tasting would be limited by appointment only, no walk-ins. The wine tasting would be limited to the interior ground floor. The use of the swimming pool would be limited to the residences, and that the outdoor special events and amplified live music would be prohibited. And then again, that the vacation rental appeal would be withdrawn. Staff did look at the specific conditions of approval that were provided in April of 2024 for consideration by the Planning Commission, and looked at the appellant's proposed conditions of approval. There are a number that were consistent, so I did not include any of those that were consistent with the most recent proposal. And I just wanted to provide to you the ones that were different. Specifically, the retail hours were modified in the appellant's new proposal to be consistent with the wine tasting hours. That they are proposing to use the kitchen that was designated for employees only to be used only for snacks that were incidental to the wine tasting, which is allowed for wine tasting uses. They are allowed to have snacks that are prepared off-site. The additional requirements were for 6 short-term bike spaces. 2 short-term bike and 2 long-term bike are required actually for the commercial uses. Wine tasting hours originally were proposed from 10 to 5. This modifies from 11 to 6. The original COAs did allow for wine tasting by appointment and invitation only. There were no walk-ins. This was stating that it would be by appointment only, and that when previously we had the invitation only, it would be limited to 12 times per calendar year. Our municipal code allows up to 26 times per calendar year. So just as a reminder, 19.84040 is the section that we use to process our appeals. And again, as stated before, the appeal body may consider any issue involving the matter that is subject of the appeal, in addition to the specific grounds of the appeal. and that the appeal body may affirm in part, or reverse the action, decision, or determination that is subject of the appeal based on the findings of fact about the particular case. And when reviewing a decision on a land use permit, the appeal body may adopt additional conditions of approval that may address other issues or concerns that are subject to the appeal. So recommendation, as previously stated, is to deny the appeal and adopt the attached draft City Council resolution titled A Resolution of the City Council denying an appeal and affirming the Planning Commission's decision. Alternative actions include to affirm the appeal in part or whole and set aside the decision of the Planning Commission and direct staff to return with a resolution with findings reached by City Council to do so, to request additional information from the appellant to substantiate and support any arguments and continue the matter to a future hearing date, and lastly, to remand the project back to Planning Commission with specific direction on what the Planning Commission must consider. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions.
All right, I suspect there are some. Ms. Farrar-Rivas?
Yeah, I just would like you to go back to the slide where you were comparing the two, because that isn't, and I think this is a new slide.
It is, sorry.
And so can you just, because you went through this fast, so originally it was invitation only limited to 12 times per calendar year, and now it would be 26 times per.
So in our draft conditions of approval, we, this is what was provided for consideration by the Planning Commission is on the left side.
Mhm.
On the right side, this is per the letter that was submitted by Mr. Woods. So they did not take into consideration the invitation only allowance that is under our code. That there, and also maybe that there is a difference between an appointment and an invitation only. Invitation only specifically is calling to, sometimes what they do is wine vendor dinners or specific member dinners, things like that.
So it doesn't, it's blank here, but you're saying it would be limited to 26 times per year.
Or as determined if that was requested by them or as determined by City Council if a wine tasting use permit was to be approved.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Wellander?
Question number one, if we were with what is now on the table, which is different, with the offer up that if the wine tasting is granted, then the request for the vacation rental will be removed, short-term. What findings would we have to make to satisfy if we were to go in the direction of allowing the wine tasting as limited as it has been described?
You'll still make the same findings, the adaptive reuse findings, the use permit findings, and the wine tasting use permit findings. The only finding under the adaptive reuse ordinance that would not apply is finding number 6, which only applies to vacation rentals.
Thank you.
Mr. Dean, do you have any questions for staff?
Yes, I have the question regarding your new findings, 180 East Napa Street, that one, was approved 2013. You just introduced. Could you please develop a little bit more, because the based on what kind of facts, and then you approve, because here I didn't see they make any investment for the improvements, and why, what is the reason? Yeah.
They had already done the improvements with a prior building permit to convert it back to living space. And at that time, my assumption probably was that they weren't looking at a vacation rental. They were just converting it back to being a living space. I can't speak for the owner at that time. And then they moved forward with asking for a vacation rental. And so the improvements were already completed.
Okay. If any in the historical site and related, or any special, the treatment from the historical preservation, lead.
So that is a historic site, and yes, they would have had probably design review at that time. I didn't look specifically what the design review requirements were. if they did do any exterior work. I'm not aware of any exterior work that was done at that time. The building itself hasn't changed a lot. It's the adobe
Okay.
over here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ms. Lowe? Ms. Lowe? Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much.
Which one it is, yeah, I stayed there.
Did you have something?
No.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Gates. I'm going to ask the council now to disclose any other information they have received that is not included in the staff report, also referred to as ex parte communications.
Yeah, and only applies since the last meeting in September because you did a disclosure at that time.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I had a meeting with Jim Bohar. I can't remember, I think it was after the last meeting, but I'm not positive, so just to mention that.
Mr. Ding?
For me, just casual another talk a little bit. And last week, Mr. Jim Bohar delivered a letter to my office at 755 Broadway, because that time I was preparing and traveling, and I couldn't look at it in the detail.
All right, and I too received a package from Mr. Bohar at my front door, and that was it.
Same.
Ditto.
Same.
Oh, I'm glad we all decided to come clean.
I think, like the vice mayor, I was confused as to whether or not I had received that prior to the last meeting or this meeting. There was similar information. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so we've got the preliminary community question. Okay, we're going to open the public hearing. And as the previous public hearing, the appellant has 10 minutes to address the council. And that 10 minutes will include any representatives of the appellant, attorneys, engineers, etc. So, Mr. Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Good evening, staff. Thanks for the opportunity this evening. I think staff's research, as reported in the staff report on previous adaptive reuse ordinance permits, is helpful, and I think it supports the council's ability to uphold our appeal if you so choose to do so. So we appreciate that research. Our research didn't get nearly as far as Jennifer's did, so good to see that. I also wanted to say that the proposal that I made in my letter dated the 17th reflects something that we've, I think, been recognizing on this project for a long time, and that is that things change and circumstances change. Part of the policy reason for upholding the appeal and interpreting the ARO in the manner consistent with how it seems to have been interpreted in the past recognizes that circumstances change. Preserving an historic property doesn't involve just the initial cost. It involves maintenance. It would be a short-sighted interpretation of the adaptive reuse ordinance to encourage initial preservation and then decline any changes that might need to be made in the future, because forever is a long time. So the proposal that I made, as I said, suggests a recognition that circumstances do change. Mac and Leslie McGowan, who've been members of our community for a very long time, no longer wish to sell the property. As things have developed, their Stone Edge Farm Winery staff took a look at potential for relocating from the existing tasting facility in their offices on First Street East to this location, and encouraged Mac and Leslie to consider that. They did, and they liked the idea. So now what we are talking about is a Stone Edge Farm relocation from First Street East to First Street West. No net increase in tasting rooms. Supporting a long-term local business that has been a known actor in the community for a very long time in many different locations. Edge Restaurant, the tasting room on First Street East, numerous other locations, Carragher Road, Silver Cloud. The tasting facility on First Street East has operated below the radar, as you see from correspondence in the file. There have been no complaints. Some of our neighbors didn't know there was wine tasting going on. It was so incognito. We're proposing by appointment only, no walk-ins. I think the reservations only may apply to special occurrences or events of some sort, but we're certainly happy to work with staff in conditions of approval if you choose to go in that direction. In furtherance of our proposal, I wanted to introduce Dorothy Cicchetti, who is the manager for the winery at Stone Edge Farm, and she'll give you some more information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dorothy Cicchetti. I'm with Stone Edge Farm Estate Vineyards and Winery, and I've been part of the winery since 2011. Been working for Mac and Leslie McClown, and very honored to be able to be here this evening. I think Michael Woods said a lot about what things could look like if we were operating over at the Cooperage. It's very exciting being part of the wine team to think that this could be our new home. I grew up here in Sonoma. I have family who's been in the wine business for many, many generations. My grandparents actually bought Buena Vista Winery in 1979, and I grew up at the winery for a decade plus, so I understand the value of historical buildings, the wine in this community, and I think what Mac and Leslie have done with the Cooperage is completely remarkable. Given that it's a commercial building and has been for its entirety, I think it's very exciting to think that we can live and work in this space. I feel that every project they've done, they've left things better than the way they found it, and I think that speaks volumes to how they operate and their kind of long-term views and investment. And I think that's really what's happened is, you know, Mac and Leslie both have very much a long-term view on things, and I think they've realized how much they appreciate the building, what's gone into it, and they want to preserve it for their family and for the next generation, for their son. And we hope that, you know, everybody's on board with that. I have letters from our neighbors over on First Street, which are in the file. I'm happy to read any of them from people that know us and have been operating there. A couple of them, our immediate neighbors, are here in the audience and may possibly say something. August Bastiani, who's our neighbor across the street, known for, you know, since childhood. He is a great neighbor and has been very supportive of things that we're doing and knows what Stone Edge Farm is all about. So let me know if there's any additional questions I can answer, but we hope to be a very good neighbor. If we move into the space, we're very, very excited, and I think there's a lot of congruency with our name alone, Stone Edge Farm, and our history, and being very site-driven, where the story began. You know, the winery has been going on for 20 years. Many people may not know that because we're very small production and we're not distributed and we're all sold through our mailing list, which is why we operate by appointment. But it's not a new venture.
Okay, thank you. Council, are there any questions for the applicant? Okay, seeing none, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, at this time, we open it up to the public to address the council.
Question, sir. We typically have 3 minutes.
It's 2 minutes.
Okay. We've been preparing for a month or so at 3 minutes. Is it impossible to extend that?
I will stick to 2 minutes. You know, one of the things I'm going to say is that we've heard from everybody that has submitted everything. We've read all the materials, so I think 2 minutes is sufficient to express your point of view.
No, I appreciate that. In this case, it's material that you haven't received. There may be other people. In the
Mr.
audience.
Bohar, why don't you go ahead and give it a shot?
Fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the council, staff, please deny this appeal. Please follow the well-grounded recommendations of the community development manager. The neighbors and neighborhood are the heart and soul of Sonoma. The controversy over the ARO interpretation is important as a fundamental. However, there's another fundamental finding not overlooked by our neighborhood and the Planning Commission. This project is an integration of traditional wine tasting and the VRBOs. It creates a new entity, like some other wineries in a currently declining industry. This new activity involves a social club-like hotel, residences, private group events, meetings, dining, all centered around an elegant wine country theme experience. In this case, the whole is much greater than the sum of two seemingly separate parts. These two previously separated activities, when integrated, create a symbiosis of higher energy and intensity. Nothing in our development code describes this new entity. The dramatically higher activity in a looming 7,000-foot operation will be the largest facility of its kind in Sonoma, ironically, in the center of a residentially zoned neighborhood, our neighborhood. This facility should be located elsewhere. Perhaps there is no elsewhere in Sonoma. That doesn't justify the application. The result, the key finding of a compatible neighborhood context cannot be supported. Please deny this appeal. One quick thing, sir. These are a new offering being made tonight, a different configuration. The conditions of approval are very important. We collaborated on the first event in 2018, and we've had little chance to think about, collaborate, and understand these things. It's troubling to not have an opportunity to do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bohar. Next speaker.
My name is Carrie Fogg. I live at 291 First Street West. As a neighbor of the project, I believe this is unnecessary. It is that another wine tasting establishment and new verbo is unnecessary and detrimental to our small stretch of First Street West and against the interests of the Sonoma community. Those of us who live here full-time have experienced 5 years of construction, trucks, scheduling, deliveries, road repairs. We have never met the owners, nor have we been offered the courtesy of a tour of the project. Where is the respect for the neighbors? From our perspective, this appears to be a real estate deal for personal renown and profit. It is interesting that the only voices seeking approval of the appeal have been the owner's hired experts. But many community members, not just us neighbors, oppose to commercial creep in our neighborhoods. We have plenty of wine tasting rooms and better places to locate them, and there is general opposition throughout Sonoma to more verbos. And a new thing that came up with this letter from Mr. Woods, what about the residential component? Nothing has been mentioned that. You're talking about a tasting room, but we don't know who's going to use the rest of the property, so I'd like that to be clarified. Thank you, and please deny this appeal. Thanks.
Next speaker.
Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Michael Huff. I live at 289 First Street West. I just have a couple quick questions. The counsel for the appellant has mentioned that it shouldn't be a one and done situation, so they're asking for no vacation rentals now, but what about next month? I mean, is that something that can come up again 2 months from now, 6 months from now? Anybody know? Nobody knows. Other thing is, okay, who lives next door to a wine tasting room in here? Can we see a show of hands? Absolutely not. Oh.
Please,
Oh, you're all over
please
there.
address the council, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Thank
please
you.
address the council.
All right. Well, anyway, I don't want to live next door to a wine tasting room. And, you know, I don't see that it benefits our neighborhood. And I appreciate the, 10 minutes notice or so that, you know, we received this information. You know, it was a nice legal maneuver. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hello, City Council. My name's Peter Mathis, 287 First Street West. I'm 2 doors north of the Ice House. I'm delighted to hear the proposed changes, the dropping of the, or let's say the consideration to drop the vacation rental. I was very adamantly opposed to it. I also appreciate the offer to make some reasonable sounding concessions or limitations for the wine tasting room. That said, I remain opposed to the wine tasting use. I would much prefer to see wine tasting rooms located in the plaza in the area that was designated for them. One of my principal, to me, I view a wine tasting room as essentially a type of bar. It's not as bad as a bar in a neighborhood impact, but we live on a street with children that live almost immediately opposite the proposed site. And there's a lot of kids that walk up and down that street going to and from their sporting events. So let's say, should you consider an approval of this change of use, I would really strongly urge you to attempt to address that issue. I think anyone who parks in their blind driveway needs to have some sort of escort back out of it, you know, a flag person, a crossing guard. And I would like to see a limit to the number of people that are allowed to attend on a daily or weekly basis. I like some teeth applied to the by appointment only within our industry. I'm in the wine business, by the way, pro wine tasting room and pro winery, pro business. But within our business, it's a standard, just a well-known joke almost that we have this by appointment only. They have signage sometimes right out front. Just call us and we'll make the appointment.
Thank you, Mr. Mathis.
All right. Thank you, Council.
Steve Weisiger, 227 First Street West. I heard the term adversarial thrown out, I think, by the council. I feel like it's a little different for me. I'm not here as an adversary to the applicant. I'm here because the details being offered on why they wanted this amendment in the first place, it was so vague. It didn't make sense. We're going to sell the place, but we want all these extra things. It felt like an attack on the neighborhood. I'm here to represent the neighborhood. Tonight is the first night I heard a name associated with wine tasting. It just felt like we were trying to increase value of a real estate sale, and it didn't make sense. It felt like somebody who doesn't live here. I know they've lived in Sonoma, but they don't live here. I felt gaslighted. I felt like the applicant's representatives were telling me how I should feel about it. It's already too busy. This neighborhood's ruined. We should be able to put anything we want here. That's the messaging I was receiving. I'm optimistic tonight that potentially there's some sort of compromise, but I've lost trust. I've lost faith. I don't know what to believe. I've heard so many contradictions. We need the money. We spent too much. We don't need the money. It's not about the money. We've heard so many stories. I agree with one of my neighbors who said, what happens next month? Do we ask for a vacation rental next month? So where does this leave us? I mean, you're here, you were here to make a decision on something that it's just changing day by day. What do you do? What is your role here? Do you just say yes or no with this mess that's up in the air? I don't know. I don't know what I would do if I were you. I wish this could go back to square one and it runs through a process. This feels like I've worked on a project in my career for 6 months, and all of a sudden some high-level person comes in and goes, Let's just talk about one little element. Green or blue? Great. This is what we're doing. And all my planning makes no sense. It goes out the window. It feels like all the work since 2018 just went out the window. I don't know what you do with that. Good luck.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi there, Nancy Simpson, 130 Patton Street. We did send a letter. My husband and David and I live literally next door to the current Stone Edge tasting room and office, and we're the ones who didn't even know they had a tasting room there. So I think we found out last week. I want to reassure all of you, council members, as well as the neighbors, many of which I know and respect, that they have been amazing neighbors. I mean, we know them. We are friends with the people that work there now. They decorate for the holidays. There's a huge pumpkin on the front porch right now. They are committed to Sonoma. They have been philanthropic. They have been supported. I think that I come from a strong history of supporting historic restoration or historic preservation in Sonoma as well as in Sonoma County. And I would ask the residents to consider, would they rather have a brown site building that's falling down and an eyesore and frankly dangerous, or would they rather have this beautiful restoration of, really, now that I've seen it, of one of our most beautiful historic buildings. The other part of what I want to say is that we live in, a block from the plaza, 2 blocks from the plaza. As a result of that, we are exposed to a lot of different businesses. So next to our house, where we've lived since 1999, is the preschool, 2 churches, 6 tasting rooms, the women's club, Wine Business Monthly's office, Stone Edge Farm. So if we choose to live in town, there's a potential that we're going to have a business next to us. And if we can make sure that these new offerings are approved, thank you.
All right, thank you.
My name's Michael Heffler. I'm from 293 First Street West. This is a complex issue. So again, every time I've been here, I thank you for your public service. So I do that again. This is not easy. The one issue that has changed for the neighborhood this time is that we just found out about this Mr. Wood's letter today, most of us. And so this is not an issue where the neighborhood could get together and have a conversation and really come together with, what do we want to do and how do we want to do it and come together fully. So you'll see that my position is a little bit different than some of the others, which that's the way it goes sometimes. But we would certainly like that opportunity to talk through this and get together. If you look at our main position, it's been pretty straightforward and something I think you can all relate to. Nobody wants to live next to a short-term vacation rental. Somebody that I know and some of you know, she just told me, I live next to one, and the people were making a lot of noise, and I went over and said, this is a neighborhood. Can you please be considerate? And they said, this is our vacation. We'll do what we want to do. That's not what we want. So the vacation rental is the main thing, and as good news was that in Mr. Wood's letter, they took out the vacation rental. Hopefully we'll do that permanently. I think I've said there are 3 things that if we had to compromise here, that as a neighborhood we talked about a little bit, which is 1, no short-term vacation rental. 2, keep the hours for the wine tasting the same as the rest of the wine tasting on the street. And 3, no special events, so there's no time when there's a lot of people who are drinking a lot coming out and making noise in the neighborhood. When I sit on my front porch, I hear the wind in the leaves and I hear the birds, and I want to keep hearing that, and I'm sure you would as well. The 2 things that are quickly, the two things that are incomplete is, you know, is there going to be permanently no VRBO in both the second floor and the ADU? And secondly, I was told by Mr. Thornley when I asked him quite a while ago, they tore up the street 4 times. Well, I do hear trucks going over that. Are they going to actually fix the street? So thank you.
All right,
Thank
thank
you
you.
for your time and your public service.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, staff. I'm Michael Ross, architect for the Cooperage Ice House building, and it's a great pleasure to be here to speak to this issue. I won't repeat any of the things that I discussed in the prior meetings, but I believe an approval of this appeal tonight balances many of the issues previously discussed and provides a thoughtful, verifiable, and reasoned resolution of the appeal. I would like to summarize some of the aspects that support your approval of this. And first of all, the project is now very specific, and it's within it resides fewer variables, and the variables that do exist are now available to verifiable conditions of approval that you can place on the project. We know that wine tasting is an allowable non-residential use under the ARO, and therefore within the purview of your determination. And so that's an important aspect of this request. Should you approve it, this will indicate the City Council's support of incentives to the private sector to invest in the preservation and restoration of our dear historic resources. And that would be the case here. If you were to approve this appeal, that would allow for the approximate 100-year pattern of live-work use to continue at this site. And I believe that what we have before us is really an expression of Sonoma Valley itself, that we have history, our agricultural economy, wine tasting, all coming back to a historic use and a beautiful building. I would like to ask your support of this appeal and thank you for your determination.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Christine Bohar, 299 First Street West. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. I've spoken at every meeting, and I repeat myself, please deny this appeal. I agree with Carrie Fogg, who stated that why are we even spending 5 months on this issue? The original project is complete. This is not an amendment. This is new to the property. I appreciate that I can take off the next paragraph about the VRBO, but there's so much about the wine tasting that needs to be addressed and should go back to the Planning Commission to be redone. You will not be making any more money from taxes and so forth by moving the wine tasting from First Street East to First Street West. So as far as in the city making a profit, making money on it, it's a wash. No one besides the paid professionals, except for tonight, have spoken in favor of this. Well, even the McQuans have not spoken. They've never been to a meeting all the way back since 2018. They've never addressed us as a group. We feel totally disrespected. Your constituency voted you in with the common need of more residential housing in our town. These voting citizens of Sonoma, in addition to the neighbors, have asked you to listen, to protect our town, and deny the appeal. We do not need another wine tasting in our residential neighborhood. Many experts, including a land use attorney, architects, winemakers, and VRB owners, have recommended you to deny the appeal. The Planning Commission that you appointed and your own city staff has recommended you to deny the appeal. Please listen and deny the appeal.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker. Next speaker.
Hello, City Council. I am Andrea Huff. I live at 289 First Street West, which is in the small cul-de-sac that is right next door to the project. I did speak the last time, and I would ask you to deny this request because we really feel that having both of these things, certainly having a tasting room, we are not in favor of because of the increased amount of traffic and the increased amount of noise that this is going to bring into the area. Also, the parking is so restricted in our area, and people are forever turning down our street trying to park, which is, again, a dead-end cul-de-sac situation. We also would, if this were to go through, we would want to request that there be some limits placed on the fact that there should be no appeal to have any vacation rental in the future. As it stands right now, it's just withdrawing the vacation rentals right now. I don't know how that really takes care of our needs for having no vacation rental activity in the future. So I would ask that there be some restrictions placed on that also. So I thank you for your consideration, and we do appreciate the number of times everyone has gone back and forth on this.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Marion Weber, and I am a victim of a commercial business in my area of Diamond Day. Totally different from this. We are in the county and said no commercial business. However, the live-in girlfriend across the way from me has decided to hold exercise classes. Let me tell you, noise, chaos. Many of us are senior citizens, just like this group here. Well, it's true. Some of us have serious medical concerns, which anxiety and loud noises don't help. Anyway, the owners of the property in the First Street West area would suffer similar consequences as I am suffering. City Council must protect these citizens from the abuse of a large commercial property. People coming to stay and visit are not interested in the concern of the locals, but coming to party. Drinking increases the risk of injurious behavior. Residents will be exposed to increased traffic and parking along their streets and in front of their homes. Property values will go down, not up, and damage to property can occur. Please deny this project and protect the residents who have chosen the beautiful, safe, and peaceful city of Sonoma to be their home. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers, please?
Hi, Nina Swastapani, 287 First Street West. I wanted to ask, I guess, I don't know if I can ask, to clarify whether or not this change would be under the ARO and whether or not the people who apply and receive ARO can come and just appeal the decision every month. Like, where is the stop to come back for a new use permit? I would like, the applicant had brought up that issue in the last meeting, and I think that should be clarified for ongoing projects, historical buildings, or even the people that have received ARO before. Thank you.
Thank you. Stick around and you might get informed about all those things. Anyway, anybody else wishing to speak to the council?
Hello, I'm Winnie Farwell. I live at 452 2nd Street East. My comment relates to the amended project for consideration, the point about withdrawing vacation rental appeal. Now, is that withdrawing, do they mean withdrawing short-term vacation rental appeal? And the question is, can they then have a monthly rental? Would that still be legal? That's the question for the city, and that's all I ask. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Vic and 40. I think a lot of this confusion is a result of having the published new proposal day before the, or Friday before the hearing today. So the neighbors really haven't had a chance to absorb this or understand it. And what it's doing is creating this a meaningful compromise could be discussed, but with 1 day's notice, it's really unfair to the neighbors. The tasting room that exists now down on First Street East, excuse me, is I think 157 square feet according to their website, and the proposed one, I'm assuming, could take the entire first floor, which is about 2,500 square feet. So it's quite a different thing. But I think, you're going to need to define the conditions of approval, and especially the hours and special events and the other things that go along with that. And you really haven't had time to discuss that. And the staff has made an attempt to discuss it, but it's not really complete enough to be respectful for the neighbors. And thank you.
All right, any other speakers? Seeing none. All right, this is an opportunity for the appellant to hopefully answer some of the things that they heard. But anyway, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will try. Yes, my letter, I think, was made part of the public record on Friday, so it's been part of that since then. But the wine tasting use permit has been part of our proposal from the beginning, and it was a subject of draft conditions of approval from staff back in April that have been public since then. There was a question about who would be using the residential portion. I mean, we don't know who will be living there. We can have residents living there now if we wanted to, and 30 days plus is the requirement. 30 days plus is not a VRBO. That's simply, as I understand it, the city's regulations. In terms of the question about whether a VRBO could come up again, not from us. It's not part of our plan at this point anyway, if we receive approval of the wine tasting use permit, but any owner of the property could come in with an application and it'd be subject to the city's review and consideration and approval or denial. That is our process. That is the process for use permits in this city. There was a question raised about by appointment only being a ruse in some places. I understand that. I've seen that happen. That isn't what's done at Stone Edge Farm. Typically, they have at least advance notice of 24 hours before somebody comes in, and often it's longer than that. Mr. Hefter, I think, raised a question about the fixing of the street. We entered into a contractual arrangement with the city before we received our certificate of occupancy that provided for our financial contribution to the cost of fixing the street. And my understanding is, and recollection is, that the city found that it would be more cost efficient for us to contribute to the overall repair and repaving of First Street West in that area, rather than just fixing one portion right in front. In other words, our dollars would go a lot farther if they went into the same pot that the city would use to fix that entire street when that opportunity comes around. There was a question raised too about the size of the space. Mr. Conforti raised that, I think. I asked Dorothy about it before I got up to speak, and she said that moving to this space would be upgrading the experience for Stone Edge Farm customers, but it would be operated the same way with the same team, the same people, the same size of operation. So it's not like increasing the size of the footprint of the floor means that we're adding more people or expanding the use. So that's our position there. I'm happy to answer any other questions if council would like.
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Wood?
By appointment, wine tasting by appointment, do you have any number limit, a group or how many people?
Typically at the First Street East location now, Councilmember Ding, it's no more than 3 groups per day. But I don't want to commit to that in this space because I don't know exactly what the business plan will be, but it's the same team and the same number of people. So, and it's definitely by appointment only in advance.
And what I mean is, one group, what that mean? And 3 people or 5 or 10? Do you have any in the number? Or in your industry, in the wine tasting industry, they have a common practice. I'm not sure. Can you explain?
Sure. Can I bring Dorothy back up? Because she's more qualified than I am.
You have 2 minutes and 6 seconds.
Dorothy, 2 minutes by the time you get here. Happy to answer that as best we can.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so currently we are allowed to see up to maximum 18 guests per day in the wine tasting use permit that we currently have. We operate Wednesday through Saturday by appointment. We typically don't host groups after 4 p.m. Our team is small and we work typically banker's hours, so everybody wants to be able to leave by 5 p.m. That said, a group is typically 6 people or less. It could be a couple that comes for an appointment. It could be 4 people. It could be 6 people. But given that we're such a small team and I'm hosting visitors or my colleague Philippe, there's only 2 of us that really host guests when they come to Stone Edge Farm Winery. So it has to work within our schedules. That said, I think the traffic is very minimal. We're only doing our operations inside, and as the letters that you received show, people don't even know we're there. I mean, they just don't even know we exist over on First Street. So I don't think it would be a concern to anybody, any residents on this street. I know there's a tour tasting room in Walt. I think they're a lot busier than what we're doing. They're also operating outside, and those are small operations as well, but we're very small in comparison.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Wellander.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
I'm curious now, currently at your tasting room, what are the hours and days again?
So we're currently open for, business as far as office hours, Monday through Friday. However, tastings can be made by appointment Wednesday through Saturday. We're closed on Sundays. Our winery has always been closed on Sundays. I believe it would remain the same if we were to be operating out of the cooperage.
And that's 9 to 5 is what your current hours are?
Business hours for our office, but for tasting appointments, that's offered 10 to 4 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay.
Just quick clarification, because it says here the hours of operation will be restricted to 11 to 6 versus 10 to 4.
I'll let Michael.
Is that correct?
That's correct, and that was what Leslie asked me to put in that letter. And I think that was representing a little bit of an increase over the current hours, not knowing necessarily how things go in the future. But my understanding is the operation, if it were allowed to move, would continue as it is now. But the request came from Leslie for 11 to 6, I believe it was.
And most of the
6 days a week, I'm
It
sorry.
wouldn't start at 10 a.m.
No, and I think that was in the original conditions of approval that we had, but it wouldn't start at
Yeah.
10. 11 to 6 is what we're currently
Okay.
asking for the official hours in the permit.
All right, just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further questions.
Oh, may I
Yes.
say one last thing? There was a question raised about Mac and Leslie not being here. They have had serious health issues in the family this year, and it simply wasn't possible. So I'm sorry they weren't able to be here themselves. His 90th birthday was on the day of the Planning Commission meeting, so he wasn't able to attend.
All right, thank you. Close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. And who would like to begin? Mr. Ding, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I thank you, everyone, and communities, and the developers, applicants. Appreciate it. This is a controversy issue. Today, I was encouraged and by developer and these, and a compromise, and rental property. That is my biggest concern compared with wine tasting. And for me, I love the Sonoma's history. I really appreciate whoever made an investment to own the local historic and assets. That is should be, recognized and appreciated. Number one. Number two, and also I think, this is a project controversy. And also I haven't seen, the developer has a big step, because you have very positive attitude, listening, from the previous, totally different. Today I can strongly fear, and every party is come down. That is in the right direction. And our the city council's duty is helping each other, helping the parties understand each other based on the knowledge, based on the local code, ordinance, these kind of things. So also our staff did a lot of the due diligence and find out, and two different projects before. We are not using ARO and the code. So that is the number one. Number two is, out in the local, residents, if we look at the original approved that one, allowed, and downstairs is a small and shop, selling souvenirs and, little bit gifts, these kind of thing. And also, and why the tasting and the license will not be increased in the city. So we moved from another side to here. And also another thing is, this is a cultural change and also business trend change. Right now, wine business is going down dramatically, because the cultural young people, they really don't want to drink wine. They don't want to spend the time, and that is a potential issue. So I would like to, support, this appeal partially, just like based on amendment and Michael Woods and suggested, but with a restriction for example, you just mentioned, and one day is 18 people and 3 groups. That is I think, for me, I don't think I can represent our local residents, neighbors, but I think that is could have been accepted from my side. But for sure, no any events, and also build up a very good and friendly relationship with your neighbors, and learn from them, and they'll always listen. That is my, because the reason why I would say this, when I talk with the neighbors, also I was seeking any alternative, any resolution, based on some of you, and they have this kind of, also similar concern, and the rental is the big concern, and tasting room, little bit in the change is acceptable. So that my decision maybe will not be accepted by the neighbors. But this one, I just tell the people that is I'm thinking at this time. Thank you.
All right. Yes. Who would like to go next? Ms. Lowe.
I want to thank the appellants and everyone involved for their patience through this. I think the fact that we have a different proposal now that takes out the short-term rental was a very big step towards making this compromise, if you will, and coming up with something that could be positive for everyone. Because we have this ordinance that allows these various activities to happen, if you renovate a historic structure, one of those things was going to happen. It's what's in the ordinance. I mean, you get to apply for these things, and that's how things get renovated here. And I want to particularly thank the staff, because I think it was my request last time to go forth and find some examples so that we are making a decision based on past practice, based on the policies that we have, because we don't want to create new, proposals that, are going to create a whole new policy. We want to be consistent with what we have done in the past. So I will support the new proposal without the VRBO, Airbnb, or whatever it was going to be. And I'm encouraged by listening to the people who live next door to the current wine tasting room and how it's operated. I have personal experience with that. And I think that there could be a lot more intrusive operations happening in that building than what they're proposing. I think this is a very minimal. I mean, on the street, we do have a bar. There's already a bar there. I mean, it's called the Depot Hotel. There's a bar, and I've been to that bar. I bet there's people out there who've been to that bar. And there are people across the street playing baseball and whatever. So this is not out of the ordinary. And people who are doing wine tasting, with very unique wine that's not massively produced, they're going for a completely different kind of experience. This is, they're not going to a bar. They're going there to appreciate the wine. And so I will be supporting this, and I want to thank everyone for coming together, because I think everyone's input has created a better result, and I look forward to hearing in a year about how great it all worked out, and I would love to sometime go there and see it for myself, and I wish everybody well, and I think it'll be there'll be a nice part of the neighborhood. We have wine all over Sonoma. There isn't a place you go. That's what we do here, folks. I mean, we drink in our park. Lots of parks all over the world. They say, you drink in your park? I'm like, yeah, we encourage you to have some wine in our park. And so it's kind of what we do. And so I think they're doing it in a very restricted way and they've been really listening to what people have to say. So I will be supporting that. Thank you.
Ms. Farrar-Rivas?
Yeah, I agree with both of the comments of my previous council members. I think that the usage of the site, if it was a store, would probably get more traffic than an appointment by only wine tasting room. I don't think that we can comment on people's choices of a wine tasting room and how that business is going to do in the future. That's their decision of, having that business and making it work. So I also think that, I agree with, especially having been to the Stonehenge, their restaurant, also walking by their wine tasting room, and also not thinking it was never knowing it was a wine tasting room, not seeing much traffic there. I've just seen, their approach has always been very, very private, and really, more of the higher quality experience. Most of the wine, when I bring folks to come and taste wine in Sonoma, I always go to the appointment only wineries, and they're generally much fewer people there. It's not a raucous experience. It's a quiet experience. So I appreciate that everything that all the neighbors have said. I think that everything that you have said has really encouraged the owners of the Cooperage House to come and make a compromise. And I think that in these situations, it's really important for the compromise to happen. And I think that I see this as a compromise. I think one of the things that we do need to do, which is separate, is we will, at a later date, review this ordinance and just look at kind of some of the issues that it's brought up in regards to the lack of clarity of what is, how the ARO can actually be used and when it can be used and how often it can be used. At this point, I think what we've shown, the staff has shown, is that it stands as a use that can happen, and that the completion of the building, the precedent so far has not been an issue. So I think that would be my position. So I would support with the removal of the VRBO, that would be something that, if that were to come back, then that comes back. And then that, I think, is certainly something that, many of us might have a different opinion about. So I think that that's important for us to be. We can't predict the future and what's going to happen in the future, and say how we would decide about something we don't know if or when it's going to happen. So that would be my position in that. So I would definitely support this new appeal that the appellate is bringing forward.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wellander.
Yes, actually, I have a couple of questions for staff, if I could first. If we grant a tasting room permit for First Street West, and if it doesn't pan out, tasting room closes, would a new use permit be required for another tasting room there or retail use?
No, the use itself runs with the land.
So the use, the wine tasting runs with the land. If someone wanted to come back for a light retail, as was originally proposed quite some time ago, would that have to come back before planning for a amendment to the use permit?
That, so two things. One is that also runs with the land. However, the request originally, so maybe there's clarification needed, is that the retail would still stay and the wine tasting would be in addition to the retail. So it would be a combo use that's being proposed.
So for clarity then, I'll repeat back. So if we grant the wine tasting tonight, that runs with the land along with the original request for light retail.
Limit.
And you have, that sounds pretty subjective, limited retail.
I'll read it to
Okay.
you.
Well, I'll listen.
Just give me a second. Sorry, I gotta find it again. I have to go find it.
Okay.
It's in the narrative, specifically what type. It's going to be specific to specialty goods
Okay.
that need to be like
So
artisan
you
and
feel
things.
comfortable that we have a definition of what limited retail is?
Yes.
Okay. Then likewise, if we're moving an existing wine tasting room from one place to another, in the old place, that wine tasting runs with the land?
Yes.
And if someone wanted to come along and do something different, like for instance, I have nothing against wine tasting. I just know we have a limit now of, I think, 26 within a certain geographic area.
25 within the Plaza Retail Overlay District.
Yeah, and of which I think we currently are at 23.
We're at 25. We're already maxed out.
We are maxed out. Did you sneak some in on us without telling us?
No, Planning Commission approves wine
I see.
tasting.
Okay, fine. So back to my other question though, if the other tasting room wanted to do something else, even though it runs with the land, what would be the process, if any?
So depending on what their future use, so a new tenant wants to use it as, they would come back potentially for a use permit. If another wine tasting room wanted to go in and they wanted different conditions of approval, they would come back to Planning Commission to amend those conditions of approval.
Okay, great, thank you. That's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Continue.
Go ahead, I'll ask after you're
Okay,
finished.
and, okay. Going over my notes from the previous hearings, the greatest concern that I recall in the past was the concern for the vacation rentals, the vacation rentals, because I specifically remember comments about noise, comments about parties around the swimming pool, and potentially just something that was very much the perception was incompatible with the neighborhood. And now we've eliminated that entirely, and so now the focus, and so it's now 2 housing units, the original one in the back and now the upstairs one. These are housing units. Part of the consideration that I've been mulling over for weeks, literally, is asking the question of why do people come to Sonoma? And one of the reasons I believe that people come to Sonoma is for the history. And I think part of that history are the structures that are scattered throughout town. And so I greatly appreciate the process by which an adaptive reuse ordinance can come into play, particularly when we have the opportunity to save what I think is an element of our fabric that I greatly value. I do believe that there have been a few examples in the past, but not a lot, that we need to incentivize the saving of our historic structures. I can think of several in town right now, one on First Street East Napa. I can think of another one on East Spain Street that basically are been abandoned and left, and they're just slowly deteriorating. Both of those structures contribute to what I like about our town in scale, history, variety of architecture, and they're right now, they're just sitting there, falling apart. So in that sense, I value greatly the fact that this particular building that had been hit by the earthquake has been rehabilitated back to something that I think we can be proud of. So with just clarity as far as operational hours and the number of people that may show up each day, I too will be supportive of what was brought forth in the, I believe it was the October 17th letter.
Yes.
Quick question. So we can revoke wine tasting license permits for reasons, et cetera. Is that true?
For non-compliance
Non-compliance?
with the non, yes, they would have to be heard, but yes.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to put that on the record because, you know, I want people to understand that doesn't mean that, you know, anything can happen. I mean, we have, you know, we monitor things, and if there are problems, you know, there are avenues to deal with it.
I found my definition of the retail.
Okay.
So limited retail use consisting of a lifestyle retail store that curates, displays, and sells unique or one-of-a-kind home furnishings, clothing, artwork, fabrics, and similar products.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, you know.
1 second. You're done, Mr. Wellander. Mr. Ding?
All right. So because we received this kind of new proposal not a very long time, from the staff perspective, do you think any compliance issue you need a time to double check for sure everything is in the right order, just like Senator Lowe, Council Member Senator Lowe mentioned, and the license or other than the issue? Because I have the notice, because this is a new proposal just came out, and the neighborhood haven't got enough time to digest, and maybe they have another ideas, another suggestions, and if any in a way for them to address the issue. Because at the first time when I address myself, I just say this is the right direction. So how to carry that out, and we should also be in very detail, making sure everything is in compliance. That is my question.
Sorry, we just had a clarification that we found wine tasting is different. I thought it was in the non-conforming section only, but a discontinuance of use for wine tasting is 60 days. So after 60 days or a new use, the wine tasting use permit goes away.
Okay. Better. Thank you. Why don't you, Mr. Woods, stand by for a few moments and let's kind of finish this round of conversation.
Yeah, I have a quick.
I'm looking at our attorney. Is there something that we need to know?
No, I was just discussing whether or not we needed more time, and I don't think staff believes that staff needs more time.
Yes,
I mean,
because I raised this
No,
question.
Mr.
Right,
Ding.
right.
I'm sorry. So restate so I can be
So
clear.
the question was whether or not, given that we only learned of the revised proposal Friday, whether or not staff would need more time to move forward with that. I don't think staff needs more time. I do think the proposal would, that we would seek direction or a motion from you to come back with a new resolution, because we do not have currently before you a resolution that denies the vacation rental but approves the wine tasting with conditions.
Correct.
So
All right.
we'll talk about that.
Thank you.
So can we go back
Ms.
again?
Farrar-Rivas.
I know, thank you. Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas. Sir Mayor. Could we go back to, once again, I love the slide where it shows what was requested first and what's requested now. One of the things, and the reason I would just like to make sure that we're very clear about the invitation only 12 times, that is part of, if it is or isn't part of the proposed condition of use. Just because what I want us to do is to be able to come up with tonight and say, this is what we would like to see happen, these are the parameters, the resolution comes back to us, and that is clear, so that the neighbors also know and can anticipate, what the conditions of use are.
Sure. So again, this is a comparison between the draft conditions of approval previously presented and the appellant's proposed conditions of approval with the recent proposal. So on the right-hand side would be looking at what they're requesting. On where it's blank, I would say we would add a minimum of the 2 short-term bike spaces and 2 long-term bike parking spaces, because those are required for commercial uses. And then the other one being clarification about whether or not we would do invitation only. So their current use permit for their current location does say by appointment and invitation only, and they are limited to 26 events per year at their current location. And again, these are winemaker dinners, these are limited invite events. So the other clarification, the question that Council Member Ding asked is whether or not to limit the number of attendees groups at one time at this location. So that is the outstanding, I would say, item.
I think that their permit to serve alcohol already, does that already have those limitations on it?
So that was per their narrative that they requested back in September of last year when they applied for their wine tasting use permit. That is not what was submitted originally in April because we didn't know what wine company would be actually using it. And so that is typically what we see in our narrative submittals is kind of what that may look like, and we could then set our conditions of approval to be consistent with what they're proposing. So if they want to maintain that consistency, we could look at that as the number of individuals or groups and how that plays out. They are also on their existing permit limited to 4 p.m. They're 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on their existing permit.
Has the fire department established maximum occupancy based on square footage?
It would be square footage, but it would also be on the actual exits. And so I'd have to look at what that rear exit approval was. And so if it would be limited to 49 if it doesn't have the correct rear exit.
Okay. Any other last minute questions from Mr. Wellander?
On this comparison between before and current, I think it was expressed by the applicant that they would be looking for the wine tasting hours 11 to 6, but only 6 days a week, and that is not stated here. So I would like to suggest, if that's the request of the applicant, that we limit it to those 6 days.
Okay, before we get too far along in crafting this, I want to have my say. Somebody was curious as to why this has drug on for so long, and these things actually just take time, take meetings. But more importantly, everybody has a right to due process. And so the applicant in this case is exercising that due process. And it's been extended or postponed several times for a lot of different reasons. I, for one, actually feel very strongly about property rights, and I look at what people want to do, and we can regulate what takes place within the building and what a building looks like. And so, you know, there are ways that we can allow uses and regulate those. That's through the use permit, through conditions of approval, and we do have enforcement capability if those conditions are violated. I have to say I was actually pretty excited when I saw the removal of the vacation rental component in the proposal most recent. And another oddity that I just learned tonight about the First Street repairs and the fact that the applicant or the appellant, I guess is proper term, has offered to contribute into the repair of the street. And for those of you who talk about the neighborhood and how precious it is to you, I would just say that if you repair that street, you'll have another whole set of problems. But right now, you end up driving slow on that street. Yes, it's a little noisy, but you smooth that out and you will have just different issues to complain about. And so with regards to what we're doing now, it sounds like we've started the process of crafting what we want a resolution to look like. And so we'll continue doing that. And Jennifer, I don't know, do you want to just keep filling in boxes?
Mayor, before you or we make, can I put additional, because I haven't clearly understand our city attorneys, because my question is, do we have enough time to digest this new proposal from staff-wise, checking everything is compliant, any additional questions in controversy? Question number one. Number two, or if any the way for our neighborhood and get out have a second chance to express their comments to our new proposal, because which arrived on the last Friday. It's really, really, not in good time. Yeah, and also at this time, I would like to address my concern, because this appeal case wastes us a lot of the time, and I don't feel very comfortable. This kind of decision already made in the Planning Commission, unanimously approved, and sent it to here, and we need to work on this. I understand our attorney and David Ruderman and you and Michael Ross equally important, equally equivalent, but our city's budget is very limited. So many issues we need to work on that. So for example, the David Ruderman, they have the numerous, I know you have the several projects you are working on, not only this, but for your developer side, if you can work very well, work with the neighbors, work with the commissioner, planning commissioners, better than easier. And also for us, our work should be easier. Just like today, you have the right direction and move away from the rental. That is good. At the beginning, you should project it how the neighborhood look like. How do they feel? Communication is the best for the developer. That is my comments. Thank you.
Mr. Ding, I just want to point out to you that we are looking at an appeal on a planning commission decision, and the appeal has not really changed, except that we've removed vacation rental. So you've been talking about this for months, and so nothing's really changed other than perhaps it's gotten a little easier to deal with because we're not talking about vacation rental. So I would suggest that we continue going through the amended considerations.
And if through
Yeah.
through the chair, if when we do bring forward this resolution will come to a subsequent meeting, and at that time, we will still be discussing this item. Am I correct in that assumption,
Yes,
Mr.
that's
Ruderman?
correct. We just need some direction to the extent you
Yes.
have it this evening for drafting the
Right.
conditions.
So-
And we will come back with a proposal, which will be distributed to the public 72 hours in advance.
Right. So there is, in a sense, there will be another time, Mr. Ding, if that helps.
Yeah,
Um,
that's good.
And so what we need to do now, because I think all of us in some way or another have expressed interest in moving forward with a resolution to come back, approving the appeal with the conditions that we have stated. And I think that the vice mayor's sort of focus on the amended project slide is helpful in that. I'm comfortable with what the appellant has proposed, with the addition of the required elements that they didn't include but are part of our code that need to be there. So obviously those will be there. And so I feel comfortable about that, and I also know that has happened in the past. Resolutions come forward, other things come to mind, and that can be amended at the meeting. That's what public meetings are all about. So we'd like to get it right the first time and have it just kind of sail through, but you will have an opportunity to continue to think about this, and I think that's a good thing. But for my input, I feel comfortable with what has been proposed, with the obvious, the city requirements layered into that.
Okay, Ms. Gates, do you have enough? I mean, what are we missing here in terms of a resolution?
I think I have enough. I think for the clarification, we'll work with the applicant on the limitation on how many will attend at a given time in that space, and work on that seating arrangement that was originally provided to make sure that that is still the applicable seating arrangement, given that we actually now have a wine tasting company proposed. The only other thing would just be that we'll add the bike requirements, and then we will discuss the invitation only limitations per calendar year.
And I think we asked also to add the 6 days a week to the hour.
Yes.
Mr. Wellander?
Question, please. There was, again, concern, and I think it would be appropriate to verbalize it. The appellant has withdrawn the short-term rental. And conceivably, this facility could be sold down the road at some point in time. What would be the process of any of them, that new owner being able to come back and put in an application for a short-term rental?
Be the same process that they currently
Going
go through.
So it'd be basically starting from scratch, that they would be going,
Back to
submitting an
Planning Commission.
application, you would be reviewing it, it would go to Planning Commission, and if the decision was made and was not felt supportive by one side or the other, it'd be coming back to city, potentially a
If
city
appealed.
council.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
If the ARO were to change in that time period, then that would change.
Okay, thank you. All right. Seeing no other comment, is there a motion?
We at least need a motion to continue the hearing. If you want, I can try to articulate what I understand to be the council's desire. So it would be to deny the appeal as to the vacation rental use based on its withdrawal by the applicant, and to approve the appeal as to the wine tasting use permit based on the findings that were previously included in staff's proposed resolution to the Planning Commission, and including conditions of approval as proposed by the applicant, including conditions related to the bike spaces and related to limitations on invitation only, and that you would be directing staff to prepare this resolution, and I believe we would need to include a categorical exemption from CEQA as was proposed to the Planning Commission, and that we would further continue the public hearing on this matter to the November 6th regular City Council meeting for final action on the resolution. Is that correct?
Sounds correct to me.
Did that include also the comment about how many could be there at any given time? Was that not
It did not. That did not. But
was that something that we brought up? And I thought you shared it, so I was just wanting to make
there
sure.
was a discussion about the current Stone Edge wine tasting use permit may have a limitation on total number.
So we'll bring that forward as well.
Thank you.
I've so moved based on your stated proposal.
I second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Wellander?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar-Rivas?
Aye.
Mayor Gurney?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
And do we need to carry the public hearing to our next meeting?
Yes, the motion that I stated included.
It included that.
hearing
Okay, thank
to
you.
November 6th
All right.
regular meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there anything else?
Yes, wait. Okay, time to move on to item number 10, public comment
Oh,
on anything that was not on the agenda.
not on the agenda.
And I will assume there is